Terry, and this video is for the world's biggest summit. I love to create and be creative and to help other people learn to express themselves through art. I've spent years talking to other creatives online, and often I hear these people that are just bursting with the need to create, that they don't feel like they have the skills, the actual technical skills, or the technical knowledge of how to draw and how to paint, or how to do whatever the skills are they want, and that makes them feel like they are blocked from actually creating the finished pieces of art that they're trying so hard to break free and be shared with the world. So my mission is to remove that block by teaching wonderful creative people like you, the actual technical skills to create wonderful pieces of art. Today, we are going to create a mixed media project on canvas featuring a phrase that will remind you that the greatest inspiration can often come from within you. It's going to say, be your own muse. The skills you will learn include making textured backgrounds, neatly cutting words from paper. You're going to be really impressed with what you can cut from paper using my method. Layering elements and rubber stamping on a canvas. Come join me in my studio and we're going to make a wonderful project and find yourself to be your own muse. Hey, welcome to my studio. We're going to begin our project. Now the first thing I need you to do is to take your printout. You should have printed out your words mirrored. You want to flip them. Do them in an image program. There's free ones online like Picnic, or you can download the free one called GIMP, which is a little bit more advanced. Or you can use, if you have Photoshop or Photoshop Elements or anything like that, you just put your word in there. Mine are 200 points high, but your height will depend on the size of your canvas. And you want to print them out mirrored reverse. But these are reversed, so they actually look, if you can see the light through that, when I look through it the right way. So, what you want to do, first you're going to start out, just cut around your letter pretty close. You don't want to cut the letter out, the words out yet. But we don't need all this extra paper. Okay, then you're going to take your decorative paper. This is scrapbooking paper. On the wrong side of it, you're going to glue down your words so that the nice dark printed backward spot is facing up. So you put the ink on the wrong side of your printed out word, and just get lots of glue on there and make sure you completely, absolutely cover the area with the ink on it, where the actual word is printed. You don't want any of that to lift up. Now, this is the wrong side. I want this to be my word. So on the wrong side of the paper, glue down my printout. Rub that down really good. And come in again. Get rid of the excess paper. Now we're going to cut this out using this. I'm going to start with the E. I've cut out all my letters already for the sake of expediency. I'm just going to show you with this one. So cut away the E. Now to cut neatly, there's a couple of tricks. One, you don't want to use scissors that are too large. These are the smallest ones that will cut. This is pretty thick. This was like scrapbooking cardstock, and then it's got a layer of copy paper on it too. So it's pretty thick. Now when you cut, you don't want to be going like this. Okay? You want to move your scissors very slowly, like this. And you don't want to cut at the tip of your scissors. You want to cut way back here. And when you move, it's your paper that gets moved, not the scissors. So you're just closing the scissors slowly, but they're staying in place. And you're moving the paper. And try to move the paper and not the scissors whenever possible. Sometimes when you get to really detailed areas, you'll have to move the scissors a bit. The more you practice, the easier it'll be, and you'll find your cuts are so much smoother this way. And this way of gluing your pattern that you've printed out in reverse on the computer, from the computer, onto the back of the paper lets you cut out amazingly detailed images very, very easily. As long as you go slow and don't rush. And you see, I have my E there. Right there. You see, this is the reverse of there. It's flipped over. Now I've already cut out my letters, and you can see here on the back is the black, so it fit just like on there. I've already cut out all the ones I'm going to use. So you cut out all of your words for Be Your Own Muse, all your letters. You should have printed them out in a nice heavy font so that without too much detail. So the next step we're going to do is to start putting our background texture on here. Alright, so for part of the texture, we're going to use either some tissue paper, you could use a paper towel, anything lightweight that you can crumple up. So, piece of tissue paper, and crumple it. Get lots of texture. Doesn't matter if you get little holes in it. Absolutely doesn't matter. Okay, and we're going to use Mod Podge to put it down. I'm using matte. It doesn't matter if you use matte or glossy. It's going to take quite a bit, so in this case I'm going to pour some down. Using Mod Podge, you always layer underneath and on top. Yeah, see, that's a lot of Mod Podge. Probably best to use an old brush. Using this one for everything today. Covering the entire surface. Mod Podge is a glue, so make sure you wash your brush really well, frequently. You're going to take our scrunched up tissue paper and cut it in half so that it's closer to the width here. And scrunch it down like this. Now this has a pattern on it, but by the time we're done, only little hints of that color and pattern are going to sneak through. So if you choose a colored tissue paper like this, it should coordinate, but you don't need to worry that it's all going to show through really bright, and you shouldn't rely on being able to see it either. If you want to see those roses, you might want to save it for later. Okay, it doesn't have to be completely covered here. I'm going to get some other ephemera and stuff on here. Now from the ephemera and things are collected, I'm going to trim the edge of this off a little here. Check before you go on to the next one. Make sure you didn't miss any spots with the Mod Podge, and I definitely did right here. Okay, I'm going to add some more stuff to this, stuff that I might give it a little bit more texture, and I might want it to peek out a little bit. So I've got the old doily, paper doily here. More Mod Podge underneath where it's going to go. Always, always, always layer the Mod Podge. Put that down. I'm just going to do a light layer on top. I'm going to do a big layer on the top. All of this in just a minute to make sure that I've got the tissue paper sealed down. Then I've got just some scraps of scrapbooking paper. These are from when I cut the letters out. I'm just going to put them underneath. down there. And I'm going to go ahead and put a heavier coat of Mod Podge as my top coat to seal this whole thing down. Not pour as much as I did last time. That was a mess. Alright, now you have to let this dry. Depending on where you are, they could take 15 minutes or it could take an hour. Alright, now we're ready to put our main background color on. This is really going to cover up a lot of this because what we want more than any of this color under here is the texture. So we're going to be working rough. We're not going to go for a smooth coverage. So some of that will still show through. You can use whatever color you want to be the main background color of your piece. I'm going to use some acrylic gesso because it gives it a nice matte finish in white. You can use white paint, you can use any color acrylic paint that you want, but I really recommend using acrylic on this after you've put all that Mod Podge on it. Again, I'm just going to, this isn't something that needs to be neat. Actually, a little messiness, as long as it's just on your canvas and not your work area, is good. You just want to roughly cover this. See how that texture is going to do all kinds of work for you for making this interesting. All those wrinkles and bumps and lumps just turn into something magnificent when they're under there. Just relax and really just go for it in there. Okay, that's it for the base coat. We're back to another stage of letting it dry. Alright, now we're going to start adding some more color to our background, more layers, and these are going to give us some visual texture because we're going to use all kinds of stuff to make texture. I've got a sponge. Here, it looks like a natural sponge, but it's not. It's artificial, some bubble wrap, toilet paper rolls, caps, dowels, piece of paper with some circles cut out of it, Q-tips, a piece of no-slip padding. This is just my little collection of junk that I use to make textures. They're brilliant art tools. Sponge a little wet there. I want a background, kind of turquoise blues and purples. My white, so I'm going to put some paint on here. I'm going to take my sponge. Lots of this color on here. Look, we're using a sponge. Even more texture. Okay, you can let that dry a little bit, or you can just move on and let things blend together a little bit. I am going to use a slightly darker blue. And bubble wrap. Okay, use bubble wrap. Put it in there like this. And give it a check on your palette and then just press it down. If it's too solid, lift some of it up. I'm going to go around the outside so this darker visually frames my piece a little bit. I have this one, which is another color of blue. I'm going to do that one in a minute. Let's do some lavender on here. I'm just using craft paints for this because I'm doing such a big quantity. Craft paints work just fine. I'm going to use the sponge again for this, but I'm not going to go heavy. Just want lavender accents. All over at random, very light. My paint underneath is still wet. So I'm working wet in wet is what that's called. And that helps it all kind of blend together. But you want to be careful not to overwork it. And you get mud. Yeah, blend those in just a little. I'm happy with that. I'm going to add some darker purple. Again, I'm going to keep the dark colors around my edges to act like a frame. Yeah, but I don't want it a whole bunch. Just want a little couple dots. Right now I'm going to do my glittery one. This through my hands. Yeah, that's my glittery blue hands. Or my hand with glittery blue paint. Some on my palette, which is just a styrofoam plate. I'm going to use these big dots. I'm going to do some right there. I'm just going to use my sponge, which is already wet and gooey. Stencil these on there. Now they don't come out really bold on the camera. It's hard to show that because they're really close in color. But when the light hits it, the glitter shows up. Okay. I'm going to use this one. This is a piece of just tulle netting, like a little teeny scrap. You pick it up at the fabric store, or you get produce or something in a net bag, just use that. I'm going to use a little more of this dark purple and stencil right over the top of that. I'm going to mix it with some of the lavender on my palette. Put that down there. Now when I was doing the texture layer, this also works good, this debt stuff. It's awesome just to glue down in that first texture layer too. Alright, so that's it for this layer, and I need to let it dry again. And this is mostly dry. I'm going to add just a couple more little bits of texture that I didn't want to blend in with the wet paint. What I'm going to use here is a stencil. You don't have to use a purchased stencil like I'm using. You can use another doily, piece of lace, anything fun like that. And this is some sparkly purple spray-on ink. There's several brands out there in the market. Just be careful of your area around you. Give it a couple squirts. There we go. I need to dry it so that it doesn't smear. I'm going to pick that stencil up, but you want to leave the splattery bits that are out further. There we go. Now you can really see that. Hopefully you can see it on the camera. Don't want to overdo that, so that's just the one I'm going to do. Back over there. Okay, let that dry again for a couple minutes, but the ink will only take a couple minutes to dry. And we're back, and it's all mostly dry. And we're we're ready for some real fun now. I think that's not fun. Being all messy and doing all that is great fun. We're going to lay out our letters now. We're going to lay everything out. That's our letters in the pieces of paper. I have a butterfly, and I have this bird. I just cut these out from the scrapbook paper. But I decided they kind of, to me, represented a muse. So find images that to you represent what inspires you, what you find inside of you that makes you your own muse, and use those on here. But do make sure that you use images that aren't going to have the colors run when you put the Mod Podge on top of them. Paint. Now you lay this all out first so that you know that everything's straight and exactly where you want it before you start with the Mod Podge. Now for the Mod Podge, you put these all down. You're going to work one letter or piece at a time. So over here, in the B, Mod Podge. Underneath of it, put the B down, Mod Podge on top of it. Put the E next to it, Mod Podge on the canvas. Put the letter down, Mod Podge on top of the letter. Now with all these bumps here, all the texture we've made, it helps to run your finger over your letter after you put your last of your Mod Podge on it. The next step is to add some outlines to our letters. You can use a waterproof pen, and you can use a Sharpie or a Uniball Vision. Works nicely for really thin details. For the outlining part, I'm going to use the Sharpie, and then I'm going to come in with the Uniball Vision for some details later. I'm just going to do this very sketchy. Don't want big solid lines. We want sketchy lines. And you'll see when I do this, so right now it's hard to see the letters. I really want the words to stand out because this is a canvas. You don't want people to have to get 2 inches away from it to be able to read it. You want to be able to read it from a distance. Now that the words are all outlined, we're going to add some rubber stamps. You need to use a solid ink light stays on for it to stick on here, for it to actually dry. I'm going to use some swirly stamps and some more bird themed stamps. Now the trick to doing this, you need a good surface to push down on. So I like to use something small and flat. I'm using just an old paperback book. And I'll move this around and put it underneath where I want to stamp. I'm going to start with my swirlies. Now these are clear stamps. You normally put them on the back, but I find it a lot easier on the canvas to just use them loose. Lay them down. I'm trying to find a good spot. Flat on the thing, trying to where you can see it. I'll do it right here. Carefully, you don't want to do this on top of your canvas. Like that, to get ink on it. Do it on the table though, but I just wanted you to see what I was doing. Scoot. Okay. Get a hard surface under there. Just going to place it, and you want it to overlap your words and overlap your picture over here. we're going to start layering stuff on top here. And we don't want to cover the words or the image, but we do want to intersect and overlap a little bit to start bringing some unification to everything. Do another one. Stamps on there. I'm going to move this book out from underneath. And now I'm going to do my final layer of paint. I'm going to use some shiny paints and maybe a little glitter in them and add some more shapes and textures to the top. And when I do it, I'm going to overlap a lot of the space because I want to unify everything together so everything will have the shiny bits on it. Now that you've made a gorgeous piece of mixed media art and you have some new skills that you've learned that you can use to create the pieces of art that are inside of you right now, come and join me at mixedmusings.com. That's mixed music. That's Mixed Musings. The muse has an E in it, like M-U-S-E-I-N-G, like the inspiration that you are, the muse. So come join me at mixedmusings.com to read my blog and learn about the other classes that I'm running and that I'm planning for the coming year. Got a lot of excitement planned. And tune in tomorrow for more workshops from the world's biggest summit. Bye!